All right, so welcome to the Coder Kids podcast. We have another guest on the program today. We've had a lot of fun guests recently, but she is Tonya Davis, and she is the Houston Regional Manager for TEALS. So why don't you describe what TEALS is and what it is that you do?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, and I'm glad to be a guest on Coder Kids. TEALS actually stands for Technology, Education, and Literacy in Schools, and it is a program that was started by Microsoft
Okay.
actually in 2009. So we are
Oh, wow.
11 years old now. When the Philanthropies Group of Microsoft was formed, not to be confused with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, but Microsoft Philanthropies is a standalone entity within the Microsoft organization. It started in 2015. We were moved under that umbrella with as an outreach program within the Microsoft family. And
Okay.
so our role and our goal is to increase the teaching capacity for computer science in high schools across the nation. So, in short, we exist because there aren't enough teachers to teach it confidently so that enough American students can engage and then elect and decide to pursue computer science and technology as a major and ultimately as a career. So I've often been asked, it's like, what's in it for Microsoft, right? Because it's no charge to schools,
Right.
and principals get kind of leery. It's like, what are you trying to get me to do? Um, and really, what's in it for Microsoft, as well as every other customer and competitor, right, in our space, we need more people who have the ability to create the programs and the products that we make available for our society to enjoy the way
That's
we do.
That's absolutely right. I can see so many challenges that you deal with. I definitely smiled when you're talking about principals. And, I'm talking to principals all the time myself at the elementary school level and middle school. So not much in the high school level. But, they have so much on their plates, right? That any additional programs like, well, what do I have to do about it? And
Right.
my response is always like, just give us the okay and sign the form and we'll do everything else.
Yep.
Exactly. Like we just want to provide these opportunities to kids
Right.
and students of different ages, right? So it sounds like we
Hmm.
have a lot in common there. Yeah, so tell me about your story. Like, how did you, Tanya, get into this specifically, and uh, and then what's kind of the daily job that you have? Like, what would you do in a
Yeah.
typical day?
So I actually, I am of an era when when computer science was when PCs were basically new, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we were just starting to, my senior year in high school, we got our first computer lab. And me and the math teacher, she taught our pre-calculus and calculus classes, were unboxed them, set them up, and and then we proceeded to teach the rest of the class how to use them. And we that was the beginning of my journey. I knew
Wow.
I was going to major in engineering, and once we unboxed that computer lab, I majored in computer science. So I've been around this space for a few decades, and have started my career. So I went to undergrad, majored in computer science and engineering, and graduated, started working for IBM. That was, IBM was the big name at the time.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, exactly. So that was the cush job, I guess, or whatever. So I worked for them, went back and did my graduate work, and then moved here to Texas with Texas Instruments. And I was a senior product manager for signal processing family of chips, the programmable ones, right? So still always related to programming and software. And we place those, if for the audience, signal processors are essentially what makes all of our digital stuff go, right? And so at that time, many of my products were going into automotive products, health products, because they were programmable
Mm.
systems. So when we think of embedded systems, that was the product line that I managed for Texas Instruments. So segued. the all the working flexible work opportunities weren't available then.
Mm,
And
yeah.
so to meet my family demands, I actually resigned my role at Texas Instruments and stayed home really kind of for about 12 years, 12, 14 years. But during that time, I started teaching. So started teaching at the community college and taught at university before landing in a high school classroom. So taught math for the first 4 years before landing in a computer science class. So the principal, I moved districts, and the principal was like, "Hey, I see you have a computer science degree. We need a computer science teacher." And I was like, the fear and trepidation, right? Even
Really?
me, as a computer science major, I was just like, "Oh my God, I
Whoa,
don't know."
explain that. What?
Yeah,
I'm so curious. I'm very curious about why the trepidation.
because I hadn't done it in a while.
Mm,
And she asked me to do the video game class
mm,
and the computer science class. And I was probably a little less afraid of the computer science, but it had been so long, right?
sure.
And then I'm thinking it was a struggle for me to get to finish undergrad, right? And it's like, so I really want to teach other people to do it. But had no idea that the space had not really evolved, right? I mean, or
Yeah.
what had happened apparently is that the excitement, right? So when I majored, everybody was excited. As you move forward, though, and an Apple VP actually explained it best. And she said, the technology that exists when you're born just is. You don't think about it
Mm,
as
mm.
something to pursue, right? Like turning on the lights does not compel me to be an electrical engineer, right? Who cares? They're lights, right?
Yeah.
This for eighth graders, sixth graders, wherever we are now, it just is, right?
Unimpressed. Yeah, they're just
Right. And unimpressed. It's like somebody's, so the fact that somebody had to program it just goes by the wayside with them. So we really have to be intentional to compel students to want to major in computer science. And if you look at any of the employment numbers and the occupation stuff, we've been going down as far as the number of technology professionals and computer science professionals and software and programmers. So as a nation, we
hmm,
recognize that, right? And so there's been a groundswell over the past 20 years to increase the teaching capacity,
sure.
right? Because students don't accidentally major in computer science. You don't go and then say, "Oh, hey, I don't like my philosophy major anymore. I'm going to try computer science," right?
Right.
It just doesn't happen. And so that's why we've seen the erosion, if you will, in the space. And so if we don't catch them, I'm actually partnering with a manager from code.org for a
Mm,
conference here. And we're talking about foundations to graduation. Because if you aren't out there supporting students in their clubs and in the curriculum that they have, if they're not exposed, they don't get the interest, right? We enjoy playing the video games. I think now we're
sure.
starting to see more kids do it, but we enjoy playing them. But are we going to code them? Are we going to design them? Are we going to think of what that next fun game is going to be? And so, you got me started, but it's
Yeah,
like
no,
so
I
that
I can
really
totally relate.
yeah, it was a shocker when I got to be a computer science teacher and started attending the computer science teacher conferences and all of that. UT started a big initiative in 2015 where they offered $1,000 stipend to any teacher who would get certified in CS, um, just to build the capacity so that schools could offer. Because if you don't have a
Yeah.
teacher, you can't offer. If I don't have a Spanish teacher, the kids can't take Spanish, right? If I don't have a computer science teacher, the kids can't take computer science. And so that's the vein in which we work, um, if you will. And so we bring in, and what we do day to day is I recruit software professionals. If you've heard of junior achievement, some
Yeah.
people, right? So
Yeah.
junior achievement, they recruit volunteers to come into and work with kids, and that's exactly what we do. The volunteers, we recruit software professionals, software engineers, developers, architects, anybody who knows how to code. We invite them to come in and work with our teachers, and they participate on a teaching team. Anywhere from 2 to 4 volunteers will come in, depending on the teacher's skill set and their comfort level with the content. Will come in and work alongside them to teach the computer science. And so the students learn it while the teachers learn how to teach it. So teachers know how to teach, right? But if you like, one of the Dallas regional managers says it best. He said, when I got certified to teach computer science, he's like, I barely knew how to decode my own issues, right?
Right.
Let alone actually teaching somebody how to do it. And so we come in until teachers feel confident, right? So that the education advances until that time when the teacher can teach it independently. So it's exciting work because we have seen, so in 2014, I think the number, I forget, we were only in less than 20% of Texas high schools. And
Yeah.
now we finally are in over 50% as far as high schools that offer a computer science class.
I
But
was,
we really need those elementary and middles,
yeah.
engage the kids, help them know the hour of code activities, the clubs for kids.
Hmm.
We need them to know it's not scary, right? It's something that they can do. And there are all different levels of skill sets that we need, right? And so I often say everybody doesn't have to be able to design an operating system. Somebody does, but
Yeah.
not everybody, right?
Yeah.
So we need people at all levels, data scientists, right? And Microsoft is trying to push down the ability for the individual worker to control their own data experience. So if
Okay.
you are familiar at all with Microsoft tools, we have Power BI tools where you can pull, because it's so much information. I mean, the information age has just taken us to a whole new level, right? I mean, the amount of information that's available is crazy. But to be able to control that and understand how it applies to your everyday work is something that all individuals need at some point in their life, regardless of the industry, right? And regardless of the role, right? Data impacts everybody from a
Yeah.
receptionist to, a CEO. And so we need people with that ability to think computationally and solve problems in that manner, even if they're not a programmer by profession.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. I think about this stuff all the time, every day. Like exactly what you're saying,
But
making code understandable to parents too, right? Because they're the ones
yes.
signing up. It's it's
Mhm.
um it's a little bit tough, right? Because if you say, hey, we're gonna do piano lessons, it's like parents generally know what that is, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Now, what we do is a lot like piano, in that there are problems to solve. You have to
Mhm.
make stuff fit together, and you have to make it sound nice, right? And have it all come together, and that's not easy. But I think sometimes using analogies is good.
Yes.
And you were talking about specifically, like we need different types of people who can code, right? People that can
Mhm.
develop operating systems and do data systems and databases and all sorts of stuff,
Mhm.
and also video games and stuff, which is I
Mhm.
think how a lot of people get started because it's kind of
Yeah.
flashy and interesting. And Microsoft also did Microsoft like Arcade. I think you can
Mhm.
use that as a tool to code. We haven't developed a curriculum for it yet, but I think we will in the future if I can get enough time to spend on curriculum. But
Exactly.
we typically use Scratch and Scratch Junior and
Mhm.
Code.org, and
Yep.
we do typing.com just to introduce them to the keyboard,
Please.
and
Yeah.
then a bunch of little apps and stuff. Yeah, so we start with the foundational logic, sequential logic,
Mhm.
conditional logic.
Yes.
And this, does exactly what you're talking about, which is it blesses a child with the ability to think logically about programs or and problems in the real world, like regardless of whether it's on a screen or not. And also, and this is one of the things I did not learn in public school, which, I wish I would have, but my dad was trying to teach me for like, my entire life, but I didn't fully get it until I started doing a little coding, which was like, there are so many solutions to every single problem, you can't even imagine it. Because in
Oh
public
my God.
schools, like there's one single solution and anything else is wrong, right? But in the real world, there's a million things that are technically like that work, and then you're trying to
Mhm.
find what's more efficient or what's more pleasing or what communicates something to the user of
Yes.
the experience. And so those are a lot deeper questions. but I think can allow for a lot of creativity. And so I think
Exactly.
that's what our students find. I think if I can, I don't want to speak for your students, but for, for ours, they feel really powerful when I don't know how else to describe it. They feel powerful once they
Right.
encounter a problem and they figure out a solution either on their own or with the help of their friends.
Mhm.
And that's pretty incredible. Do you see a similar thing in your
Oh no,
students?
absolutely. It's funny that you should say it because I just came from a class I was observing
Okay.
this morning, and the volunteer was sharing with the students, like, because they demonstrated their projects, and
Mhm.
he's like, "You see what we did?" And we had all different variations and solutions, right? And so there's really no one set way to get to the result,
Mhm.
right? But we all get there in different ways. And so I mean, he just literally said exactly what you
That's
just said just this morning. But and the
that's
kids
true.
demonstrate. I mean, right?
Yeah.
It's like they were doing an animation project and they coded it, and they all had different approaches, different ways. But when you went and looked against the rubric, right? Because we just needed it to move, it needed to do certain things, and once those things were met, then voila, there's a
Yeah.
solution. But my solution looks different than yours, and yours looks different than Ann's, and Ann's looks different than Mike's. So it's yeah, it is, you hit it spot on. And that is the crux,
Mm.
right? Is because the problems that we face as a nation, as a society, right? There can be many different paths to getting
Yeah.
to what looks like a right solution, right? And so the National Science Fund, interestingly enough, is really putting forth an effort. Well, they always have been, but they've started a new initiative, 2015, 2016, called NSF Includes, and it is designed to bring different voices to the table, recognizing that the creativity from differences can be capitalized upon, right, and
Mm.
used
Yeah.
for the greater good of America. And so it's, yeah, it is the fact that there is not, and you said it, it's like we've got to get out of this mindset that there's only one way. And I think if we've learned nothing else from the lessons of the past 18 to 24 months, is that there's definitely other ways we can educate our students, right? And
Yeah.
we can meet them where they are, right? And make it something that is beneficial, where every student can advance and gain the skills that they need to be successful in their path, right? And so, and all paths are different at the end of the day.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
man, someday I want to touch on your motherhood path. We're expecting a second, so we're really
Oh,
excited.
fun. Yes, yes.
And my wife is really excited about number two and who it
Mm-hmm.
could be, and we don't know, and that's
Right,
there's some mystery and excitement to that. But yeah,
right.
we'll definitely have to talk again. We do have to wrap it up. But I just have one quick question for
Mm-hmm.
you, and then of course, any way that principals or parents or whomever want to contact you, we'll go ahead and put that in the YouTube notes, in the
Yes.
description. But my final kind of parting question is, say a parent has a child who might
Mm-hmm.
be interested in technology or might not be interested in technology. What's one activity that you might recommend, just kind of to dip the toe and to kind of experiment and to try it out? What would you recommend?
So if you're at home,
Hmm.
right, and you're looking for a
Most people.
Saturday morning, right, is that we have our Microsoft.com / I think it's edu, but it's Microsoft for Education.
Hmm.
And there, when I tell you, I was shocked. I didn't even know how many resources that we had that meet students. So there's a site for educators, there's a site for students and families. But we have challenges, and so every kind of age range, if you will.
Hmm.
So there's lots of fun stuff for elementary, more interesting stuff for middle school. I would encourage that. I certainly encourage, as we come out of this space, any type of summer camp, or
Hmm.
if the school has robotics or sea perch or any of those kind of activities. Now there are Code Ninja facilities around the metro area that have programs. Many schools are offering your camps if
Yep,
when you're
that's
able
true.
to offer those. And so I just encourage, take advantage of the different things, and then so let your kids see, right? And it just opens up the possibilities and kind of makes them comfortable, right? And then it's not a big deal when they get into higher grades and the rigor increases, right? And the
Yeah,
challenge becomes, not, we're just not playing, but now can we make it do something, or can we create
that's
something for
absolutely right.
somebody else? So take advantage of all of those, because everything from free to paid, right? There's some ID camps that cost like $1,000 a week.
Oh yeah, we've seen them. Yeah,
So those, it's like, if you're able, go for it, right?
yeah.
But the universities have, it's like the opportunities abound. There are Girls Who Code clubs that are run through schools and community, like the libraries. And my understanding is that Houston Public Library has some outreach programs that they do, that are all kind of related to this area and this space. So I encourage students, please, please expose them before they turn 10.
Well, thank
And even
you,
after.
Tanya. Yeah, thank you so much for
Thank
being
you.
on the program
Thank you for
today
having me.
and doing what you do with TEALS and Microsoft. We appreciate that. I do want to give a quick shout out to Allison Master. Is able to connect us.
Absolutely.
We uh, we just started our official research partnership with them, so that's actually starting next week. So that's
Oh,
like
fun.
a little bit of pre news. So who knows exactly what that entails? I don't yet, but we're excited to see how we can modify things to get people
Hmm.
who don't normally jump into coding to try it out.
Right.
So well, thank you so much, Tanya. We
Thank
will go
you.
ahead and put all the links in the YouTube video description. And again, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Mhm.
Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye bye.
All right.